The Evil China Narrative. Mag 7 Walk, Reclaim Your Country. Reminder: as a citizen of a free country, it is your right and duty first to question your government, then to act as you believe right, to protect your family and your nation. For reasons that will become obvious, every video I now make may be the last. Download them, protect them, at the very least download the PDF. What you do after that will be up to you. I have seen and ignored the China narrative. It is 9/11 all over again. Make the people angry, direct them at the enemy. However, the narrative now touches ours. We say the virus is real but a slight risk to society. The government lied and said it is a material risk. They used it to justify spurious medical initiatives. They used it to justify damaging lockdown measures, affecting our lives, our livelihoods, our freedom, devastating our economy, which is now shut down. When someone bails us out, they will earn billions in interest payments. Look for who that is. But that is not the issue here. The virus is real. Knut Wittkowski gives us advice that is essentially to protect your OAPs for 4 weeks, keep your children in school, go about your business. The government has done precisely the opposite. Sooner or later, people will get frustrated, and without any other narrative, they will question the government. With the China narrative in place, the government gives them an enemy and deflects that anger. The Chinese did not threaten us with an existential threat. Even if they did intentionally spread the virus, its actual threat is so slight as to be risible unless you're one of the very few, in society terms, to be directly affected. We could have ignored it and gone about our lives, and a few days' deaths would have had coronavirus COVID-19 on the death certificate. Sorry China, nice try, didn't work. In fact, what the Chinese did do, it is entirely clear, is give us good data on the various regions hit, the extent of the cases and deaths, and so gave us the first accurate picture of what to expect in a region, not ship, hit by the virus. Using that data, I prepared the original presentation, and all nations have duly experienced contagions in the range accurately described by the Chinese. That original presentation made clear that the threat to us from the virus was slight, that the government had lied in the absurd figures it had quoted for worst-case deaths, and that there was no reason for lockdown. All the data was there. And yet on the 26th, 3 days later, the government duly sent us into lockdown anyway. That lockdown, as our latest 10th of April data point chart update demonstrates, has had zero effect. Even I am astonished by that. For the first 10 days, the incubation period of the virus, no effect would be expected. And yet within days the government was already claiming success. What success? The actual track hasn't deviated from the no lockdown projection in the slightest. 6 days after the incubation period, the lockdown has still had no effect. That is absurd. The curve should have collapsed to flat, barring doctors and nurses falling like flies to government order. Yet nothing has happened. We're not out there, so who on earth is getting infected? It baffles me. Even I say that if you lock people in their homes, there should be some effect, but there is nothing. Regardless, the governments of the US, Canada and UK are still lying, still peddling massively exaggerated claims, 10 to 20,000 dead in Canada. They are still peddling medical intervention that is entirely unnecessary, both by Knut Wittkowski's expert opinion and by simple observation of the stats as published by World Health Organization daily situation reports. They are still arguing for continued lockdown in the UK, which was never necessary. We were on our way out. And for lockdown in the US and Canada, with governors implementing what the president is unwilling to impose on the US people. The governments continue to act against the peoples of their nations. That is not China at war with you, but your own governments. But by declaring China to be the enemy, they achieve 2 important goals. They distract you from their own actions. They give a pretext to the neocons to act aggressively against China. It is 9/11 all over again, and it seems that there is no limit to the American elite's desire for global conflict. Your house is full of Chinese goods. Your government is funded by China using the money they earn selling you those Chinese goods. Do you seriously think that China has any interest in going to war with its golden goose? Whereas your elite seeks war with anyone it can in order to further its agenda of American exceptionalism. It sounds better than British imperialism, and we did very well out of China apparently, but it is the same thing. I always believed that in our gunboat diplomacy we must naturally be protecting the Chinese. I was horrified to learn that we were actually protecting our lucrative opium trade, except it was never our trade, but the elites. It is time to wake up and realize that the only enemy our nations have day in, day out is the one that peddles lies and demands our money and young men and women's lives to engage in their global games. They aren't games to the people at the sharp end of the stick. But the US has very sensibly managed to find a non-intrusive model for fighting. No more Vietnam, no more draft, no more citizen unrest. Yes, there are boots on the ground, but far fewer, and they can now rely on killers at range, celebrating snipers, drones, remote ordnance. A few of your people die, a lot of the enemy die. Bravo, America. We'll order some more of those, please. And yes, the UK does very nicely out of it as well. And look at who the two nations are that are the prime recipients for the virus dodgy dossier, the Imperial College Report. None of that is theory, it's simple observation. So when you hear that another diatribe against China, ask if it's Chinese politicians warning how many of you may die, if it's Chinese politicians say more must be done to counteract the virus, if it's Chinese politicians who want you locked in your homes, and if it's Chinese billionaires who are advocating vaccines and chipping. Call me racist, but Bill Gates looks pretty round-eyed to me. Hair Gates maybe, but Billy Gates? Not really. If you really want to have a word with the Chinese when it's all over, go ahead. But first, please deal with the problem that confronts you right now, the actions and deeds of your own politicians. I've given you the data and the analysis. I've told you what I believe we must do. I don't like it. It scares me silly. But this won't stop until we stop it. It's just too lucrative and thrilling for them. Some people get off on cuddling newborns and raising a family. Some get off on throwing their weight around. Which do you think characterizes your politicians right now? Reclaim your country, free your nation. But hell, it's your country, you do as you like. Me, I'm ready to walk. Thank you for listening or watching. I'm Andrew Mather, a 60-year-old Brit, mathematician, financier, technologist, husband, biker, pilot, healer, whatever. Bunch of stuff. Take care. Feel free to get in touch. Andrew at peerlessreads.com or andrew@amather.com. Either should get to me.